We're following new tension near the Russian border tonight. Moscow now says its fighter jets intercepted 2 American military aircraft over the Baltic Sea. The interaction comes amid reports of yet another attack on Russian soil near the Ukrainian border. CNN's Nick Robertson is joining us now from Kyiv. He's got details. Nick, what is Russia saying about this latest incident as it also tries to secure the border with Ukraine?
Yeah, Russia's saying that one of its Su-27 fighter aircraft intercepted what it describes as 2 B-1B strategic bombers flying over the Baltic Sea. It says it engaged with them according to international rules, that this was an intercept. That's the way Russia's describing it. The Pentagon is saying that there was an interaction of these aircraft in that area, that they were in international airspace, that the interaction was safe and professional. Nothing to indicate at all that it was anywhere near that very dangerous interception of Russian fighter aircraft over the Black Sea with US aircraft about a month or so ago. So the Pentagon very clear that this is something that happens occasionally. Why the Kremlin is making a big deal out of it at the moment, it isn't clear. But certainly the Kremlin is being embarrassed, it appears, by what's happened on the border with Ukraine, the country it's at war with. Calls it a special military operation. Some Russian fighters appearing to have some level of support from the government in Kyiv, although Kyiv says that they're acting independently, crossed into Russia yesterday, shot up a border area. 1 civilian died, according to Russian authorities. Several others were injured. But the backlash from the Russian population in that area was the call for their leaders to actually tighten up and give them security. So Russia's got this very embarrassing security concern on its doorstep, right at its border. Doesn't appear to have adequate protection there. And at the same time, it does appear this evening, at least according to the governor of the Belgorod region, that a bomb was dropped, a small bomb was dropped from a drone that landed on a road. There were no casualties. There was some damage. But again, Russia seemingly embarrassed by cross-border activities coming out of Ukraine. So was the information they provided about the intercept to draw people's attention away from that? Certainly Russia continues to want to pose for its population that it's the United States that's the threat to Russia, not Russia the threat to Ukraine and Ukraine's civilian population, Wolf.
Nick Robertson reporting for us from Kyiv. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, in Russia right now, the detained American journalist Evan Gershkovich will remain in prison until at least late August, after a court granted Russian prosecutors more time to try to build their case against him. CNN's Kylie Atwood is on the story for us. Kylie, what more can you tell us about today's hearing and who attended?
Yeah, so that's right. Well, the result of today's hearing was that his pre-trial detention period is going to be extended by about 3 months, till at least the end of August. Previously, it had been till the end of May. And so this was a request that was made by domestic intelligence officers in Russia, who are the ones essentially building the case against him. We know that he is facing charges of espionage. Of course, those are charges that he, the Wall Street Journal, his family vehemently deny. But it was really interesting today, Wolf, that journalists weren't allowed into the courtroom, but the folks that we did see arrive at that courtroom with his lawyer were his parents. And Gershkovich's parents fled the Soviet Union in 1979, came here to the United States, to New York City. They raised their family in New Jersey. So the fact that they made this bold step to travel to Moscow to hopefully see their son in court, though we don't definitively know many of the details of what happened in that courtroom because there weren't journalists, is really, really interesting. And here's what the State Department spokesperson Matt Miller said when responding to a question over if the U.S. was involved at all in their travel over to Moscow.
We did not help arrange their travel. I can only imagine how difficult it must be to see your child detained overseas, especially to be detained wrongfully. And so I'm certainly not going to criticize any parent for wanting to see their child. But that being said, we do have a level 4 travel advisory for Russia.
And we also heard from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow saying that they were deeply concerned by the court's decision today to extend that pretrial detention period. They also pointed out, of course, that U.S. officials have not been able to visit Gershkovich in jail for recent weeks. That request has been denied by Russian officials. Wolf.
All right, the update from Kylie Atwood. Thank you very much. Let's discuss this and more with the former CIA director, the former Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta. Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining us. Let me first get your reaction to Russia extending Evan Gershkovich's detention and this decision by his parents to actually go there and attend the court proceeding earlier today. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it only confirms that that Russia simply has no judicial system that doesn't disregard the rights of those that they've arrested. Gershkovich has now been extended. It's a deliberate effort, I think, by Russia to again send another message to the United States that they're in control of the situation, despite the fact that his parents were there. It only shows you how brutal a regime Putin's regime is.
How complicated, Mr. Secretary, are U.S. efforts right now to free Evan Gershkovich when Russia is baselessly accusing him of spying?
It's from Putin's playbook as a KGB agent to basically use this kind of arrest to try and embarrass the United States, claiming that somehow this Wall Street Journal reporter is a spy, which we know not to be true. And so he's going to basically leverage this kind of containment by Gershkovich in order to try to use him as either someone he can trade for somebody else, or he's going to use it as leverage in dealing with the United States on other matters. So it's clearly Putin's playbook that is working right now.
Let's turn to the latest attacks inside Russia while I have you, Mr. Secretary. These were apparently carried out by Russian citizens, but is Ukraine giving tacit approval here? And is this a concern potentially for Ukraine's allies?
Well, look, there's no question that that tensions are increasing with Russia. What they did in intercepting those bombers in the Baltic Sea is typical provocation by Russia when they're trying to send a message. And the fact that that there were anti-Putin Russian militias who conducted an attack in Western Russia, I'm sure upsets the Russians as well. And they probably believe that Kyiv is behind it, although Kyiv has said they had nothing to do with it. So we're in a tense time right now when you look at everything that's going on, plus the fact that Ukraine is attacking other targets, logistical targets, to try to soften up the Russians for a possible offensive. All of that is making things very tense with the Russians at the present time.
The former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, thank you very much for joining us.